Come on in, bestie. Welcome to StoryPod, where we do the doing of story development together. Brought to you by Creative BFF.
Hello, listen. I love that you're here with me again today. Thank you for spending a little time working on our story muscles together. All right. My name is Ashley, StoryPod Podcast. You already know, girl, you already know, StoryPod Podcast. Okay. Thank you so much for joining me. If you have a question that I can answer, which I would absolutely love to do here on this podcast, you can email me at ash@creativebff.com, or you can send me a message through my website, creativebff.com. Go on to the comment section. No, not the comment section. What is it called? You know where to go. The contact. The contact. You know how websites work. I didn't have to tell you that. But yeah, if you have a question I can answer, I would love to help you. Or if you would like some one-on-one story coaching, feel free to hit me up, girl or boy. You know, I'm here for everybody. Okay. I'm calling everybody girl. Everybody gets it because it means that we're besties, and I call my besties girl, regardless of if you're male or female. So thank you. Anyway, unnecessary information. Before we get started here, returning to Reddit for another story question, which we love to do. I love to do. I have a cold today. Listen, I just have to let you know. I have a cold today. I'm still happy to be with you. Okay, when I probably should be in my bed, but I really wanted to spend some time with you today and like get the story brain going. Okay, but being that I have a cold, we're gonna have the accompanying symptoms of like redness under the nose, maybe some shininess under the nose because I do reapply Vaseline. All right, some sniffing, you know, some generally like congested sounding voice, all of that good stuff. But hopefully none of that will detract from your enjoyment. Is that a word I can use about this podcast? I don't know. And your enjoyment of this episode. But it also means that I'm going to try to be a little more efficient once I stop giving you this preamble in the answering of the question. So let's get on over there. It is from the r/character development subreddit by Lenorelai. Does my character need a colder relationship with his father? Ardvin is a prince. In the beginning, he lets his father Otrin die in order to save the realm. The king was stoic, proud, stubborn, very patriotic. The prince always admired him and looked up to him. He was a colossal figure to Ardvin. They had a pretty healthy and warm relationship, although the king-subject dynamic was always a part of it. Ardvin processes his father's death throughout the book, and it haunts and torments him because no amount of it had to be done thinking could undo or can undo the pain and guilt of what he did. And closer to the end, he gets the chance to save the antagonist under similar circumstances, and so he does. Now I'm thinking, would it be better if Otrin was cold and Ardvin was always seeking his approval and his performance as an heir was never enough, so that Ardvin could have another layer of unresolved inner conflict? The king's disappointment when his son chooses not to save him would strike harder because not only Ardvin loses him, but he also destroys all the hard work he put into being accepted by Otrin. Otrin? He spelled it differently each way. And he still carries the longing to be approved, but there's nobody to approve him. But on the other hand, betraying and losing a parent who you were close with should be more painful. So I typically try to play both sides of a possible answer, but in my mind, in my opinion, I do think that having them have a close relationship is the stronger answer to this. And that is because I think that pain of having made that choice hits much more deeply than if there was this distant, cold relationship where you're just always trying to gain the approval. If you had the love of your parent and you basically sacrificed them to save the world, that is, I think, a harder pill to swallow than if you never really had the love and you were always chasing approval and you were never good enough. I feel like that's not as strong of an inner conflict as how do you handle the guilt of having sacrificed your parent. And I think it also makes that initial, excuse me if you heard me hit my table. I think it also makes that initial decision harder to make of choosing the realm versus your father. I mean, maybe it doesn't make the answer harder to come to, because the clear answer to that would be to save the realm over the father. And I think that in the positive relationship scenario, I think that that would be what the father would want him to do. And I even think that even in the colder relationship scenario, the father that you set up, the king that you set up, would probably still, if the king still has the character traits of stoic, proud, stubborn, patriotic, I think that he would still be like, obviously the answer is to let me die so that the realm can survive, if he is a king that cares about his realm. And if you wanted to go the colder route, then the disappointment would come in. Maybe Ardvin doesn't actually make the decision to sacrifice. I don't know how. Again, this is coming from me not knowing exactly the circumstances of how that played out, right? But if it was a thing where he could have not made that decision, he could have, and then the king had to then make that decision, that could be a final bit of disappointment that he can't come back from, where it's like the king is telling him, you need to do this to save the realm, and the son is like, no, I can't do it. And so the king makes the decision himself to sacrifice himself, or he does it, whatever the thing is, himself, but he's disappointed at the end that his son didn't have the fortitude to do what was right for the kingdom. And that brings in this element of doubt. Like, can you be? So, okay, me talking through it again, I still feel like the warm relationship is the, to me, the more strong one. But if we play out, let's play the devil's advocate. Don't like that terminology. Let's play the other side, let's play for the other team for a second. If there is that cold relationship, and part of that approval is that the king expresses his doubts that Ardvin could be a worthy successor of himself, right? And maybe there's even somebody else that he's being compared to and all this kind of stuff. And then the final interaction that they have is like Otrin is saying, prove to me that you can be a good king. A good king has to be able to make the hard decisions for the good of the kingdom. So do this. And Ardvin could ultimately be like, no, I can't do it. You're asking too much of me. Could have to do with his age and all this kind of stuff as well. Maybe he's a kid. So maybe it's unreasonable for him to be asked to do that, right? But then the king is finally like realizing that his son is quote unquote too weak to do this. And it just kind of driving home this thing of like, yeah, how can you be a king if you can't make this hard this decision for the good of the kingdom? And then he does the thing, or he has somebody else do it. And Ardvin then lives with that shame throughout the story. And that's one thing that he has to reconcile with, is the shame of having failed the last thing. In his eyes, having failed the last thing that he was, that the thing that could have given him some more, what's the term? I don't want to say value. I don't want to say brownie points, but basically could have raised his father's estimation of himself as the successor to the throne, right? But he couldn't do it out of whatever, love for his father, even though they have a distant relationship, youth, not being, that being a very uncomfortable thing to have to do, right? That's hard. I don't think anybody would be able to do it, sanguinity. Is that a word? Being sanguine about that. So that might be, having that be the aspect of it. Maybe that'll be stronger. And you know what? At this point, it really depends on what you want the character development to be, what sort of issues you want the character to work through. They could I feel like now that I talked it through, that's kind of like a strong possibility as well. If you play it like that, like if you play it like where he failed in the last thing. And so now he's also, not only does he have to live with his father's questioning of his ability to be the ruler that the kingdom needs, but also his own, because he did fail. Quote unquote, he did quote unquote fail in that final task with his father. So either one could be good, I think, and it just depends on the direction you want to take the character and the kind of turmoil the kind of inner turmoil you want the character to deal with. So I surprised myself with that. I was going to be like, yes, no, the warm relationship is the only good one, but having these additional potential ways that it could play out, like him not actually killing the father, I think that adds strength to the cold relationship circumstance. I don't know that it would be as strong if he did do that, right? If he did achieve that, there wouldn't be as much of an emotional attachment, I think, to the father. And I think that this never being able to match up is made stronger by him failing in that last moment with his father. So anyway, I don't have to reiterate it 8 times. You know how when you come up with something that you think is good and you keep saying it over and over again because you just want to drive home how good you think it is? I guess maybe that's that. I don't know. I kind of am kind of like low-key happy with that little side thing that just happened. Listen, I'm sorry. Listen, my cold is making me, less humble. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, it might not have even been a good idea. Let me know down below. You might have been like, girl, you out here acting like that was like the story of the century and it was actually whack. And that may be the case, but don't just leave me hanging saying it was whack. Tell me how to make it better so we can learn together. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, listen, have a great rest of your day. I shall see you next time. Same bat time, same bat station, bro. Okay? Love you. See you later.